Okay, welcome back to the Are You Strong show. I have another awesome guest on today. Former college baseball player who is now a doctor in physical therapy. Another athlete that has gone on through tremendous amount of education and is committed to going back and impacting other people's lives, which is great. So I want to welcome to the show. Is it fair to say Dr. Carmen Sclafani?
Yes, but please just call me Carmen. Please,
All right.
please call me
I like
Carmen.
I like the doctor. I like the
Yeah,
doctor.
I do too, but it's just
Hey,
Carmen.
you
Don't
know
worry.
what? You've earned the doctor.
Thank you. Thank you.
But welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this for a while, finally.
Yeah, we're gonna have some fun today. And before I start grilling you with a gazillion questions,
Yeah.
I mean, let the audience know a little bit about you. Give them your background, say hello, and then we'll roll from there.
All right, you got it. So, yeah, like you said, I'm Carmen. I'm a physical therapist. I'm originally from Toms River, New Jersey, the Jersey Shore. I love the beach. I stayed home for college, as we like to say. I attended Rutgers University, where I chose to play baseball. Um, and I had a passion for like helping people, very cliche, but I had a passion for helping others improve not just their health and well-being, but their performance. So I wanted to uh, pursue the career of physical therapy and physical rehabilitation. And so I decided to go to grad school for that. That kind of took me all over the place when it came to where I was studying, who I was training under. I decided to pursue even more education. I did a residency in Philadelphia, and I wound up back in New Jersey. I love it. I love home. I'm in Chatham, New Jersey, not too far from you, I
No,
think, working for Resilient Performance Physical Therapy, helping athletes get uh, bigger, faster, stronger, and helping them get back on the field. That's just a little bit.
that's great. Now, are you doing a lot of work with the Jets?
Um,
Jets
no,
players?
coincidentally, we do occasionally. So we do a lot of consulting, and we will get a lot of local pro athletes that stay in the New Jersey, North Jersey, like tri-state New
Yep.
York area. And so we'll have Jets come in through the off season. We have guys that come work out in our gym. Their staff will sometimes bring guys over here to work out. But Jets, Giants, like a few weeks ago, we were over at the Devils facility,
Oh, good.
helping them out a little bit. We have a great relationship with both the Yankees and Mets team positions, so we do
Good.
a lot of work with them. Um, but yeah, why are you a Jets fan?
No, I'm not a Jets fan, but you said Chatham, you're pretty close by to their facility, and
I
and
yeah yeah
and
yeah
they could use a couple a little help right now.
yeah on multiple fronts.
You know, poor Aaron Rodgers, man. He looks like he's 100 years old out there,
Yeah, it's tough. Don't
you
get me
know.
started, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But how about Rutgers? Do you get involved with any of the athletes from down there, being that
yeah.
that's where you're from?
I obviously can't disclose a lot of information, but we currently are treating some Rutgers athletes.
Good.
Thankfully, the ones that we're treating are Jersey athletes and chose to
Yep.
stay home and represent their state. You guys will hear I'm very passionate about that, very
Yeah.
passionate about Rutgers. And me personally, I am very, very involved with Rutgers. I am part of both the football or baseball and football alumni fundraising
Yeah.
group because not just I play baseball there, but my father played football there, and we have season tickets to football, basketball, wrestling matches.
Your dad was the kicker, right?
Dad was the kicker. Yeah, he was a kicker for the football team back in the late 80s. And just I always like love to brag about my dad. When he was there, he set a record for longest field goal, which has since been broken by some of other Rutgers,
Yeah.
other great kickers. Um, he still holds I think he still holds like the total season points.
Does he?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
as of like a few years ago he did, but I don't know what's going
Does
on.
he get back up there much or no?
Oh, you will not miss. Dad will be at every home football game,
That's
every
great.
basketball game, wrestling matches. He's on the board of the football letter winners um, group, so he's always at those uh,
Yeah.
fundraising events, those board events. The um, what else? Golf. My dad runs like the baseball golf outing. We're very involved. I mean, Rutgers
That's
is
good.
huge. huge part of our lives as it's been since I was
Well,
a
that's
little bit.
awesome. I mean, I think I have to look at my list, but I think you're the 16th Rutgers athlete I have on the show.
I
And I have
love
more coming up.
high
But
five as
if you
well.
could think of some other guys I should be having on
Oh
here, just
yeah.
let me know. Let's line
Well,
them up.
you've had some rock stars
Yeah,
on here so
yeah,
far from
yeah,
Rutgers.
yeah,
Um, that's awesome. Yeah.
yeah. So let me ask you a question. Growing up, you're an athlete, you're really good in high school, good player. What made you choose, hey, I'm gonna go to, you kind of gave it away a little bit, but I'm gonna ask anyway. What made you say, hey, I'm gonna go to Rutgers and play baseball? What was the inspiration there?
So, um, yeah, loaded question. So first of all, I knew I was going to play college uh, sports. It was a dream of mine since I was little. I was brought up in a deeply athletic family. So first off, my grandfather, Hall of Fame high school football coach in New Jersey. My father kicked the game-winning field goal to win a state championship for my grandfather,
Oh
who
my God.
wasn't his father-in-law at the time, but coincidence. At Toms River South in the mid 80s. Again, he went on to Rutgers. My uncle played wide receiver for Penn State. My oldest cousin, she played lacrosse at Monmouth University. So with such a rich like family ties to sports, collegiate sports, this was always my dream and goal to go to that level. Now, I was fortunate to have some awesome coaches in high school. I played high school football for my uncle. I played high school football. I ended up playing for a guy by the name of Rob Dahl, who I won a state championship at Brick Township under my junior year. I ended up getting some offers for football, Sacred Heart in Connecticut, St. Francis in Pennsylvania, small
Yep.
one Division One AA schools. So I was actually briefly for a moment in time, I think couple weeks committed to Sacred Heart University in Connecticut to go play quarterback, actually.
Really?
Shocker. If you guys could see me right now and you looked at my, um, how tall I was, you wouldn't guess quarterback. Um, so what happened was a few weeks later, into the signing period in the fall, my baseball coach got a call from Coach Joe Latirio at Rutgers, who to this I am forever indebted to that man because he fulfilled one of my lifelong dreams. They were looking for an infielder. They needed one more infielder, and they called my coach. And that day, I called my dad, and I was like, "Dad, Rutgers, like Rutgers called, not for football, but for baseball." And I took a couple of weeks to think it over. We went up and met
Yeah.
with the coach and toured campus, and a campus that I've been to a million times. So that was special. We sat down in his office and everything. My mom came, which my mom hadn't come to some of the football ones, but she came to this one. So we knew how serious it was. I knew from the day he called I was going to Rutgers. What I tell people is if Rutgers would have offered me to play checkers or chess,
Tiddlywinks.
tiddlywinks, I would have committed there in a heartbeat. So I knew, even though I worked really, really hard to earn a couple football offers, because I'm like, football is definitely in my heart.
Yeah.
Uh, but so is Rutgers. I knew from that moment that I was going to go to spend, or be lucky enough to spend 4 years on the banks. And so I committed, and I had the best 4 years of my life and met some really good people there. So I mean, Rutgers, my mother and father, I mean, my father went there, my brother went there, he ended up going there, my mother went there. That's when my mother and father ended up. Actually, can I tell a real quick funny story?
Yeah. You got all night.
My father and mother knew each other in high school, but they met and started dating in college when uh, Rutgers football player, running back by the name of Danny McHarris, blew out his knee on a kickoff. My father went to meet him in the hospital to go check up on him. My mother knew him from high school, went to go meet him at the hospital, check on him, and they met visiting
At the same
Danny
time.
McHarris, yep, in the hospital at the same time.
Wow.
Funny story, right?
That's a great story. I hope that guy was invited to their wedding.
Oh yeah, yeah, he's great. Actually, my mom ended up teaching his daughter years later. Um, yeah.
Cool. So sports, sports is in the blood. It's in the family. Rutgers called, you're in. But how young were you when you got inspired to be an athlete? Was it a little kid? Was it eighth grade? When did you know, hey, I'm going to be an athlete forever?
Your typical, I mean, I remember my dad signing me and my brother up for soccer, right? Soccer. But my brother and I, we were not cut out for soccer. You'd either catch us, running into the other kids on the field and tackling them, or just sitting on the ground picking daisies. So that wasn't really our thing. And my father ended up signing us up for T-ball, Pop Warner, which that's when my most the most special memories. Those are from, some of the best times of my childhood were playing Little League Baseball with my dad coaching me and my brother on my team, or playing Pop Warner football with my dad coaching me and my brother on my team. So that's when we really got involved, or I really got involved with sports at a young age like that. And we were also pretty lucky. I mentioned I'm from Tom's River, and we played for Tom's River Little League, which
Yep, big
again,
time baseball down
I'm
there.
biased, but one of the more storied programs in the
Yeah,
country. Um, Played with a lot of guys that came out of that program, looked up to a lot of kids that played in that program. I also played for the Tom's River Little Indians, which there's been a lot of changes in Pop Warner football since I've played, but back in the day, they were like multiple time national champions at different
yep,
levels. I think my dad, and having the opportunity to play with my brother, really was the spark to my athletic career. And then just being lucky to be in a town that really valued sports, and
yeah.
supported their local teams was pretty special.
And there was a lot of big professional names that are on the Toms River Little League that won the whole thing.
Oh yeah, so back in the day, was it 98? You got Todd Frazier, Casey Gaynor was on that team. Casey Gaynor was our pitching coach at Rutgers my freshman and sophomore year. So real small world. I used to hit with the Frazier brothers, train with them in the off season. Todd now, Todd, Jeff, Charlie, they're running their own show down. I mean, Todd's on TV now, but
Yep.
Jeff and Charlie are running multiple different training facilities and travel teams in Tom's River. Um, so yeah, a lot of big sports names coming out of the Tom's River uh, area,
Yeah,
especially.
and Todd went to play at Rutgers too.
Yeah,
You
yep.
know what I mean?
I remember going to watch, like growing up, watching him play at Tom's River South, and then going to watch him play um, at Rutgers. He was a big, one of the big inspirations as to why I chose Rutgers, because I would see
Good.
him at Tom's River South, the same field I grew up playing Friday night
Yeah.
rivalry games on, and then I would go watch him play in the Big East Conference games at Rutgers. If I can do that, are you kidding me? I'd be lucky enough to go do what Todd did. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? Come on. Um, so that was really special. And then I got to give a shout out to our boy Ron Marinaccio. So I did play for Tom's River North for a couple of years before transferring to Brick, and I played with a guy by the name of Ron Marinaccio, who um, is playing in the Yankees organization as of this year. He'll probably be with a different team next year, but he made it up to the show. The last couple of years, he's got a couple nasty pitches. He's one of the best baseball players, best pitchers I've ever played with. So that's just another name out of the Toms River area, more
Yeah.
recent name that some people might know, that made it up to the show.
That's great. I mean, and they'll just keep pumping them out,
I hope so. I mean,
year after.
baseball and Toms River has kind of taken a hit lately.
Has
With
it?
lacrosse move over the last
Yeah.
4 or 5 years. That's really popular, which I think lacrosse
Yeah.
is awesome. And then the travel baseball taken away from like the Little League baseball.
Yeah.
That, I'm not going to say disaster, but that whole situation.
Right.
Um, but yeah, they will. They will.
They'll keep pumping them out. Keep pumping them out. So think about being a college athlete, right? It's
Yeah.
it's it's a unique experience. And when one college athlete talking to another one, and you talk about, and we were chatting before, but about the euphoria of what it's like to play in a game and the feeling you have and being part of the team, you know. But how do you think that contributed to your personal growth and development as the person who you are today?
How did that contribute? So, Jeff, I mean, and I know that it takes an incredible amount of um, self-discipline, self-discipline to be a college athlete, right? So much so that it just becomes ingrained in you. You can't get rid of it as life goes on and as you move on, right? So there are certain
It's like autopilot.
it's like autopilot, which is great. It's great that it becomes you become so numb to it eventually. But there are certain lessons that I think you learn as a college athlete that definitely stay with you life self for life, like self-discipline being um one of those. You won't survive as a Division I athlete with without it. Discipline, I think, was instilled in me early on as a, I think college athlete and stuck with me and impacted the rest of my career, like my graduate studies, right? So that flowed over into my approach to treating patients, not just my studies and treating patients, but um, how I build relationships and how I communicate with others and team members. There we go. That's another, I feel like, a big contributor to my personal growth, the ability to be a teammate, right? I mean, you are forced to become friends with brothers, I think we could say with
Yeah.
brothers and sisters, with your teammates. It teaches you how to work. College athletics teaches you how to work effectively as a team. That's probably one of the most valuable lessons I learned in college. I think college athletes can kind of excel in any setting because of that.
Hmm.
I'm sure you like to hire college athletes for
Yeah.
reasons like that. Am I right?
Yeah.
Um, they can work well with others. They know how to earn respect. They know how to work hard to earn that respect. Sometimes maybe take lead when necessary. Um, I think this ability to work in a team, for me at least, and I'm going to speak personally to me, was um, immensely beneficial during my graduate school training and rotations when I was, at different hospitals and clinics, um, where I collaborated with like different doctors and nurses and therapists and staff members. It also proved pretty invaluable when I was in my residency training this past year, when I was with the Philadelphia Phillies. I worked alongside strength coaches and pitching coaches and other therapists and trainers. So, what I learned as a college athlete when it came to the discipline um, and the ability to work in a team really helped me succeed unknowingly. Like it wasn't something I had to really uh, be super conscious of because you becomes so ingrained in you.
Yeah.
Um, like for example, we wake up at 5:30 every morning for lift at 6. And I can't tell you the last time I haven't, and this is a little sickening, but my parents think it's sickening at least. I haven't slept I mean, not counting weekends, I haven't slept past 5:30 in years. And that's been helpful though, right? Because I was, when it came to grad school, when it came to my residency, when it came to working with the Phillies, the Cincinnati Reds, here at the place I work at now, I'm the first one in the building and the last one to leave. And that's
Yep.
just kind of normal for me now.
Let's just talk about that for a second. I'm so glad you brought that up. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Your parents might think you're nuts, right? Because but I'm surprised your dad doesn't have that in him because
Oh, he does. That's the first one up in the house. Yeah,
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 there you go.
yeah,
And that all comes from like I'm up the crack of dawn every
yep,
day. 5:30, quarter to 6, my eyes are waking up. I'm like, okay, get up.
yeah.
But what happens though is throughout the night, I don't know if you do this, maybe your dad does. You should ask him. I wake up 5, 6 times a night and look at the clock.
You're gonna have to work on that. That's not how sleep is important.
But I can't help it. I'm
Okay.
like, am I going to oversleep? I look
Yeah,
at the clock. What time is it? What time is it? What time is it?
yeah,
I'm so paranoid about getting up late
yeah.
because that all comes from sports. Remember back, I don't know if you guys had 5
Oh,
a.m. workouts.
scariest thing is being late. God forbid you are
God
late for
forbid.
one of those. It's all over.
Yeah, and 5 a.m. workouts. I remember and having to walk across campus in the middle of the winter and
Freezing.
having to be in the gym at 5 o'clock. So that means you're up at 4 and that stress of being late, right? It's post traumatic stress. It doesn't go away.
You're already about to go through hell, so why, if you're going to run until you puke for an hour, why make yourself late where you're punished when you have to run for another couple hours?
Right.
You puke, you
Exactly.
know what I'm saying,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So as much as I want, maybe you can give me some tips on how to sleep better, but
I've got
I
a book for you.
I can't do it. I'll
Yeah,
give me the book. I'll read it.
it's important.
I can't
Sleep
sleep.
is important for our health, all different aspects of our health, and I'm dealing with that now a little bit, but
All right. Well,
yeah.
the other thing you mentioned is work effectively as a team. Let's drive that a little bit because
Yeah.
this is where I think sports, and you can help me, get some detail around it, is, in baseball, there's what, how many guys on the team? 40, 50?
Yeah, almost 40. Like you would will you travel 28 and 35 on the roster, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with football, there's 110,
Yeah.
120, depending on what's going on, right?
Mhm.
And what you learn through sports, you might not like the first baseman, you might not get along with the third baseman off the field, but
Mhm.
on the field, all that stuff disappears.
Mhm.
And you look to them and you rely on them and you count on them as though you love them.
Mhm.
That makes
Oh
sense?
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Oh yeah.
and I think that carries over into the business world. Hey, I've been in the business world for a long time, and there's some guys that, man, they're family to me.
Yeah.
And there's some other guys that we don't click, but we got to do what we got to do. And I think that sports helps you learn to be on the team and do your job, even though you might not be clicking with your teammate.
Because there's a common goal.
Yeah.
You're not there to make friends. You're not necessarily there to be happy and
Yep.
enjoy that moment in time. There's usually a larger goal ahead of you. And so you all put your little differences aside and
Yeah.
work together as a team for that ultimate goal. Like, for example, one of my most memorable learning experiences was working at a hospital in New York City. I did one of my rotations on the oncology floor at Weill Cornell, New York Presbyterian
Yep.
Hospital, which was at the time the number one ranked hospital in New York City. And I chose to pursue training in oncology. Um, my mother's a breast cancer survivor, so that was kind of an inspiration to me. I wanted to be exposed to that. It's a little, a little deeper than maybe sports rehab.
Yeah.
Um, and I got to work with, like I mentioned, nurses and other therapists and physicians and other students and trainings and residents and fellows and things like that. And so um, we all came from different walks of life. We had different interests. I didn't get along with a lot of them outside of the hospital or outside of the clinic, but we had a common goal, and that was to like help the people that were sick that we
Yeah.
were responsible for helping. And so when it came time to get the job done, when it came time to, um, for me as a physical therapist, go into the room and move them around, get them up out of bed, try to get them to walk and breathe and move and go up and down the stairs and mobilize them, and I had to communicate with other physicians or nurses or other therapists that maybe had a different goal and maybe we weren't on the same page, which was very rare in a institution like that. Usually, I mean, we had a very good staff, but there were times I had issues with certain staff members where I thought one thing and they thought the other, or I did something and they did something else, and it wasn't we weren't necessarily on the same page. And I saw a lot of, or I would witness certain individuals react poorly, handle disagreement or miscommunication or adversity poorly when the patient is still our main priority, not
Mhm.
how you feel, not whether your feelings were hurt, not
Yeah.
whether your orders were listened to a T, or whether you were given those orders or not. Our patient's life and well-being and health and comfort was my goal. And so, as someone who was an athlete that had experience with in conflict within a team, um, conflict from with authority, with coaches ripping into you and telling you you're wrong, be better. In that moment in time, you almost go numb to the um nonsense amongst the
Right.
colleagues and the teams, and you can just keep focused
Yep.
and keep that goal, the goal of the entire team, at the forefront of your mind, which is that patient, right? And so
Right.
there were multiple times where I had to sit some of my colleagues, even as a student, I sat down with some of my colleagues and made an effort to, whether I thought I was right or wrong, or so and so was right or wrong, or um, refocus them and say, hey,
Yeah.
we're all on the same page here. This person's health and well-being is our priority. Or this patient's health and well-being is our priority. I don't care if you came in a bad mood today, or whatever doctor yelled at you or told you you were wrong or you were stupid. Hey, they've said the same thing to me.
Hmm.
You know why that never bothered me? Because my coach told me, I said, Carm, stop striking out. You suck. Figure it out.
Yeah. You get
Uh,
used to it. Like you said, you get numb.
you're numb to it, right? And so that, I'm going off on a tangent here, but you
No, it's good.
get the picture I'm painting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that ability to have those moments as a college athlete where you're forced to put egos and personal goals aside to work
Aside.
for the greater good of the team or the
Right.
organization helped me when I was working and training with another institution and organization focus on our goals and put each individual person's issues aside,
Yeah.
you know?
That's great. And like you said, it's the ultimate goal in your profession now is the health and the well-being of the patient. You know,
Yeah.
put your silliness aside for a while, you know? So let me ask you this question. College baseball, I mean, any college sport's grueling, you know? And the more physical the game, the more grueling it becomes over time. But what I know about college baseball, you guys play a ridiculous amount of games.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
50, like, and that's if you don't even make the
Yeah.
playoffs.
Yeah. Which we didn't.
So in the spring season, like there's no class. If you go to class, you're always traveling, you're on the road, you got games, you got practice. You know, it's a grind.
Yeah.
What did you do when you were playing to stay motivated, to stay energetic, to stay focused on, hey, look, it's game two of a 50 game season. And then it's game 40 and you're wearing and tearing, you're running down. Like, how do you stay driven and motivated in that type of a grind?
From the baseball perspective, from the
Yeah.
sports perspective, it's tough, man. That's tough, especially when you're not um the top team in the conference or you're the middle of the pack in the conference. Um, Jeff, to be honest with you, it's not something that I didn't have a trick or tip or plan or approach to stay motivated. Someone like me who just was counting their blessings that I was lucky enough to play at that level and play with those guys, I cherished every day I got to go to the field with those guys. Um, so it was less about trying to stay motivated and more about living in the moment and enjoying the moment with my brothers and some of my best friends. Because even as a freshman, I knew I was very lucky. And maybe we'll get into this later, but I heard an upperclassman speak at an event one night as a freshman. She was a senior, and whatever she shared with us that night told me to enjoy every single moment with these guys because it's going to go by fast. And so, whether we lost, whether we were at game one, or whether we were at game 56, I went out every single day with the mentality that I am so blessed, whether it was practice or a game, even practice. Um, Lucky to be out there. And you know how hard it is to go out to practice
Oh,
before game 56 when you know you're not making the playoffs.
yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Still though, we had fun. I made the most of it. I knew how lucky I was to be there with those guys, and I also was lucky to be around good guys and good coaches that fostered a fun environment that made me want to be there with them and have fun and get excited.
So, baseball, grind, classroom.
Uh,
How the heck How the heck do you baseball guys, I get, and again, I don't want any other sports to feel slighted or disrespected, but football's once a week, you know,
No, yeah, you're right. But in football, I mean, come on,
they
they're
get
also
pounded.
practicing and getting pounded.
Yeah.
And like it's each sport,
It's got
people
its own thing.
work with, and I've worked with tons of athletes now
Yep.
throughout my training career, and they each have their own thing, and
Demands.
it's really interesting. And that's why, again, the umbrella of just being a college athlete, I think, is impressive and challenging in
Yeah.
itself, no matter what sport you play.
So how did you balance? I mean, you're not going to become a doctor in physical therapy if you're not good in school. So how did you balance academics, athletics at I mean, and Big Ten baseball, it doesn't get any bigger. Like, how did you balance all that?
Yeah. Good question. That was a particularly challenging um, situation for me because I was a STEM student athlete too. So I studied STEM, meaning science, tech, engineering, mathematics,
Hard
right?
stuff.
I was studying, I was in all those science classes. I took, courses in math and statistics and science, like physics, chemistry, which really meant I couldn't skip those classes or skimp on studying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I My academic journey was definitely demanding. I actually had a wake-up call, major wake-up call my sophomore year. I failed out of chemistry 101, a
Okay.
big lecture course where there were 300 students sitting in a big lecture hall on Livingston campus at Rutgers. That was a turning point in my academic career. I kind of realized I had to change my approach. I was, freshman year going out with the guys during the week,
Yep.
hanging out a lot. I hadn't really stepped foot in the library my freshman year. Um, but I realized after that, getting kicked out of chemistry, I needed to change my approach. That meant spending a lot of my free time, a lot of my free time, whatever free time I had, um, in the library on College Avenue or at the rack on Livingston campus. If I had a few hours after practice, and this is just the truth right here, if I had a few hours after practice and the guys wanted to go out to eat, I would tell them no, and I had to head to the computer lab to study. And that was tough at first. They would bust my chops.
Yeah.
But after a while, they stopped asking and they respected my time and they knew that I had to do that Tuesdays and Thursdays when everyone was going out to the bar. I'd be in the library until 11 p.m., even if we had, 6 a.m. lift the next morning. And so, like, learning to balance, school, sports, and my social life taught me the importance of, you know, the concept of like delayed gratification. Right now, I think this generation often struggles with the concept of delayed gratification.
Yep.
But I knew that those late nights in the library would pay off, and they did, right? So getting my chops broken by my guys on the team, missing out on a lot of fun. I went on to earn a doctorate in PT from one of the best medical institutions in the world, honestly, and I worked my butt off to say that. I earned my a dream job at this performance company that I'm working for right now. So but also I made sure to carve out time for fun. And you want to touch on the topic of like mental health, right? I would have driven myself nuts. There was times where I would be laying in bed after getting home from the library and have to be up for lift in 4 hours. And I'd be
Yep.
like, this is insane. Like my buddies just went out to the bar tonight. They're having fun. That's what they're going to be talking about at practice tomorrow. And my butt, I don't know if I can curse, but my ass was
Yeah.
in the library. Like I'm missing out on all the fun. But I made sure to carve out time for fun. I mean, Saturdays were a no work day. We made sure to, I enjoyed football games, tailgating. Um, but then I maintained laser focus mentality when it came to my studies on Sunday. Sundays were all business. Um I must have eaten like takeout on College Ave um for dinner at like 11 p.m. hundreds of times um at my during my time at Rutgers. Yeah, I mean, I just knew that that level of dedication was necessary to achieve
Yep.
my ultimate goals. And despite my guys busting my chops on the team, um, they also saw it pay off. I mean, I earned our highest GPA on the team my junior and
Wow.
senior year. Other academic accolades I helped us as a team achieve. And so they accepted my choices. So it wasn't like
Yeah.
poor me, like they were really breaking my chops. If you stick with it long enough, you develop this like that they earn you earn their respect and they
Yeah.
stop kind of you know, breaking your chops. On the road, this was funny. This was always really tough for me. Um, on the road, we're traveling to Iowa, Michigan, Ohio State, and we play at 7 o'clock at night, right? So you've got breakfast in the morning, maybe get some swings in the afternoon, go to the field, whatever. There's downtime. Go check
Yeah.
out the city, go grab a bite to eat with the guys, go tour the big house, go do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I was a robot, and I was like, I don't I don't know how I did this, but after breakfast, I would go up to the room, get my backpack, go right back down to the breakfast room. The coaches would still be in there from breakfast, and I would sit there. I would sit there until we had to get dressed and get on the bus. And I'd have my computer out, my textbooks out, and I would just be studying. And they'd be like, Carm, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
And I'd say, okay, guys, see ya. And I'd go find another empty room in the hotel. And I'd sit there with my physics textbook or my kinesiology textbook, and I'm a little nuts. If I didn't do that, I would have lost my marbles and I would not have played well at night. I mean, I didn't really often play well at night, but I really would have not been in a good mental state if I didn't get my work done. My grandpa instilled in me in like an early age, like Carm, get your work done as soon as possible.
Yeah.
My grandpa really was heavily involved in like raising us, and so um, whenever we had baseball practice or football practice after school, do your homework, get it done. And so you
Get
can
it over with.
practice, so you can go to your game. And that kind of just stuck with me. It just got
Yeah.
amplified at to a completely different level. But I mean, that's how I handled it. That's what happened in my situation. I know a lot of other student athletes that were obviously in the same boat when it came to balancing their academics and athletics, STEM student athletes. Um, and honestly, if you don't mind me share, there's a this kind of ties into something else I kind of wanted to bring up
Yeah.
tonight. So one of the more memorable experiences of my college or of my time as a college athlete wasn't like a game or like hitting a home run or like you know, some memorable party with the boys at the baseball house or something like that. We I helped start a peer mentoring program for student athletes at Rutgers that still continues to this day. Um, I was one of the 12 founding members and current like president of a group called Rutgers Educational and Athletic Development Initiative. It's a STEM focused peer mentoring group for student athletes. So when I failed out of that chemistry course that I mentioned earlier, I met a tutor. I was placed with a tutor, right? Athletes got tutors
Yep.
who was on the rowing team, and he was pre-med, and he pushed me. He challenged me. He saw something in me that I did not see in myself. And he helped me get back into chemistry and succeed in chemistry. This guy also happened to be tutoring a couple other student athletes in sciences and maths and other courses like that. And we got to know each other. We started studying together. We started doing tutoring together. And we all were STEM athletes. We all were kind of struggling in academics with our
Yep.
internships in the summer. Hey, where are we going to get this internship? Our advisors don't really know how to go get if you want to go into nutrition, what do you do? If you want to go to pre-med, what do you do? If you want to go into engineering, where do you get into? Who do you talk to? Um, so the 12 of us came together and we're like, you know what, guys? We've got some really successful juniors and seniors at Rutgers that are studying similar
Yep.
fields, pursuing similar fields. We've got all of us freshmen and sophomore underclassmen that are struggling, what if we formed a group where we paired some of these athletes with some of these younger athletes and they helped guide each other through those 4 years of school, um, to help the younger athletes be successful and achieve those
Yeah.
goals. So this program, we presented this to the head of academics for athletics, and they were like, great, because our advisors are very well versed in and very helpful when it comes to networking with different businesses and you know your like your finance, your business, your marketing,
Yep.
your because we've got a lot of alumni in those fields, and that's been very well established.
Yeah.
But some, if we got a student athlete that wants to pursue their PhD in bioenergetics, no one can
There's nowhere to turn.
help them, right? But maybe, hey, there's a track guy that's a fifth year senior that's pursuing his PhD right now. Maybe we can hook you up and he
Yeah.
can mentor you
Yeah.
and help you be successful. So that's what we set up. And it was incredibly, it's been incredibly successful. We have um, students that have gone on to like um, Johns Hopkins, Harvard. We've got MacArthur Fellows. We've got Fulbright Fellows. We've got student athletes who are working at engineering companies all across the company, physical therapy,
Yeah.
nursing school, nutritionists. We have got a couple people that ended up pursuing their PhDs. So that experience, right? So that experience really, um, honestly, I think just like taught me a powerful lesson that like having success as academic and athletic success as a student athlete isn't just about, right, I talked about me doing well for our baseball team and
Yeah.
having a good GPA and figuring that isn't about personal achievements, right? It's not really about that.
It's about impacting the guys around you.
It's about helping others
Right.
succeed, right? There's something special about seeing your teammates and your peers thrive, both academically and athletically, and knowing that helped play a role in supporting their journey. I think success is really meant to be shared.
Yep.
I think it's like that's truly the legacy we leave behind is not just in individual accomplishments, like I said, but in the people we help kind of along the way, right? Leading that group gave me the opportunity to invest my time in others, develop relationships that went way beyond the field. Uh,
Hmm. Now,
and
was Tommy Wyatt in that group?
Tommy Wyatt was in that group. Yep, you know Tommy, yeah, right?
Yep. He was on the show about a month ago.
So Tommy's doing very well right now. He's actually also coincidentally, he is training as a sports physical therapy resident right now. So he's doing extra training like I did beyond graduate school to specialize in treating athletes as a physical therapist. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, yeah,
It's
Tom.
crazy. And you guys will keep that bond forever,
Oh, it's very special, very, very
you
special.
know? And what's cool about it, Carmen, is it was born from athletics,
Yeah,
but it focused
transcend
on
athletics.
academics
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
future. You know what I
yep,
mean? Now,
yep.
and it's safe to say that without the athletics, that part wouldn't have come along because you would never met each other.
No,
You
no,
know?
nope, nope.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think like you're right. Without athletics, that would never have ever happened. And the relationships we built, the impact that
yeah,
we all have had on each other,
yeah,
that's what like endures
yeah,
throughout, not the wins, not the losses, not the stats. Those relationships are what endures through time.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's about making a difference in people's lives and not really how well you did on the field at
That's
the end of
it.
the day, right? Looking back
Yeah.
on
Because the lives last for a long time. The
it.
field is limited,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know? So let's talk about pressure for a second.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the pressure to play at college. Can you describe to the audience, what kind of pressure does a 18, 19, 20-year-old young man or woman go through when you're a freshman, you come out of high school, you're the man, you're the guy, everybody knows who you are, you're awesome, no one's better than you, right? You get to that level, boom.
Yeah.
You're 18, you're not as mature as you are at 22 as a senior, 23. How did you handle that pressure, that transition from high school to college? And then how long did it take before you were able to mentally kind of settle in?
Mm. Jeff, all I remember is laying in my bed as a freshman in my dorm, my non-air conditioned dorm on Livingston campus,
Sweating.
with like an English essay due in a couple days and practice that I still haven't figured out how to like successfully make it through practice without sucking. Um, Sitting there laying at night, and I'm not one to like miss home or like, um, need my family. I'm a huge family guy. I love my parents. I talk to them every day. But I was sitting there in my bed sweating, like, how am I going to figure this out? How am I going to give coach what he needs tomorrow? How am I going to give this professor what they need tomorrow? I've got no clue what's going on in either aspect. Um, that's when I learned to like lean on your brothers, your teammates, right? It's that pressure that kind of forms really, really special relationships. You're going through this with others on the team. You are not the only one in that boat. And so um, I feel like you kind of have to feel the pressure, right? You got to feel the pressure first. You have to kind of fail
Mhm.
for that to instigate any sort of action on your part. And so um, that's when I started, or I stopped, and this was early on. This was freshman year. Stopped going back to my dorm after practice and watching, eating lunch and watching a TV show before class. That's when I, still sweating from getting out of the shower, got to class early, opened up my laptop and started studying. That's when, um, you talk about feeling the pressure. When we had our fall ball World Series as a freshman, and I think I struck out like 12 of my 15 at bats over the course of the weekend. And instead of, fall ball being over and the guys going out partying, even on a Sunday night when it was over, I didn't. And I woke up Monday morning and I went to the batting cages and I got in extra swings. It was little steps that took me figuring out how to handle the weight of what I got myself involved with. And it wasn't overnight. And I relapsed. There were days when I succumbed to the pressure and was like, F this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out, or I'm going to go lay in bed and get an extra 2, 3 hours of sleep. Um, but over time, when you realize what you want, and if you want it bad enough, you start to the pressure starts to form you, right? So you can either let it like crush you or you can let it shape you. And I'm a big believer in um, you know, people need to have pressure applied to them if anything is going to come from them, right? Anything worth having is going to be hard. So the pressure, I think anyone that really ends up being successful as a college athlete thrives under pressure, ends
Right.
up figuring out how to use it to their advantage. So when shit hit the fan for me, when I sucked, when I failed, when I bombed a quiz or bombed a test, or I struck out a few times that weekend, or I made an error that weekend, the pressure was then increased. And was what came of that was a more intense focus and uh, realization of those ultimate goals, of that ability to delay my gratification and put in some really hard work and immediate satisfaction when you want to crawl into a hole and go drink and go party
Yeah.
or go sleep. Um,
That's the easy way out.
that's the easy way out. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But I love what you said. Your pressure can form you, or it could, what did you say, destroy you,
It could either crush you or it could
crush
shake
you,
you. Yeah, or it could shake you.
right? And so, what strategies did you use, right, just to stay resilient? You
Yeah.
know, when those, because those pressures, especially you said 18 years old, freshman, things are mounting like this. They're piling up. The weight's getting heavier
Yeah.
and heavier. What did you do just to stay resilient during all that?
Hmm. Well, honestly, to be completely honest with you, personally, um I was lucky as a freshman. So in the midst of trying to figure this out, in the midst of um struggling and failing a lot as a freshman and getting kicked out of chemistry and playing crappy baseball, um, I was able to fall back on someone that I kind of like looked up to. And so what this is getting at is like kind of like relying on others, right? Like you're asking me what strategy did Carmen didn't know anything at the time. I didn't have a strategy. Right now, I've got tons of strategies and systems and models that guide my life and my practice and my day-to-day decisions and how I treat my patients and how I but as a freshman, I had people around me. I had people I looked up to. I I had people to lean on. I had friends to lean on. As a freshman, um we sat at our end of year banquet, the R awards, like the ESPYs for the athletic
Yeah.
program. And I heard each year they pick one keynote speaker um to deliver or to address the audience in the entire athletic department at that banquet. In my freshman year, the women's soccer team made the final four. Okay. And their captain, Maggie Morash, now Dr. Maggie Morash, was selected to give this speech. And this is, I promise you, this is going to answer your question because the strategy I used was to rely on the advice of someone else that I looked up to, someone that had walked my path, someone that had um, carved a path, someone that had set an example. And I mean, that kind of takes putting your ego aside and like following someone almost, right? And having the wits enough to know, hey, this person is more mature. They've done this, they've walked this path. I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to be open minded. I'm going to be vulnerable, right? So that's
Mhm.
kind of how I think what I'm about to share with you is going to answer um, your question. But she spoke about the lessons and values that she learned um, throughout her time at Rutgers. So I'm like, if these were her strategies, this is what she um, fell back on. This is a cheat code. Thanks for sharing this with us.
Yeah.
Um, it was pretty impactful hearing her talk to us at the rack that night. I mean, she was one of the most athletically and academically successful and accomplished athletes at Rutgers at that time. She ended up pursuing a MD, PhD at Duke after she graduated. And hearing her be so real with us was important for me because it became, I listened to this speech. I'm going to share, I've got this memorized. I watched it talk about a strategy. I would watch this like once a semester when academics got hard and when um, school got hard, I would think about what she said. She started off by explaining how, you know, being an athlete, right, is something that we are and always will be the competition, the fire, the fight. And those are like her words, I remember. It's in our blood, right? And that rings true to this day. I mean, you understand that, I understand.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I would remind myself of that, right? Like when the going got tough, I'm an athlete. I'm sitting in a class full of 300 kids. or I'm on the field with 40 other brothers, I'm an athlete. This is what I do. She went on then to talk about how, as student athletes, there's, and we've talked about this so far, there's not a lot of time to stop and think about what we're doing. We're mainly just doing, right? But we know that, we know what it means to put in the hours and work, tirelessly towards a goal. And hearing her, someone who led her team to a Final Four that year, reinforced the importance of hard work was really important for me to hear at that moment in time, that early on in my career.
Hmm.
Um, and it carried with me for the rest of my career. She then went, or one of my favorite things that she said, that I share with student athletes and students that I still mentor to this day, is that we've learned that there's no task too small, like carrying the gear in practice, and there's no challenge too great, like, I don't know, running the stadium bleachers, right? But no task too small, like carrying the gear at practice, and no challenge too great. So I share this with you, Jeff, because you ask, oh, what were my strategies? I was blessed enough to be around other elite athletes and student athletes that were like, hey, here's the blueprint,
Yeah. Here's the roadmap. Yep.
here's the roadmap. But it was so real. It was so genuine. So I would tell myself that when the going got tough all the time, there's nothing like when I was at practice and I was a junior or senior and I was dead after practice and I could let the freshmen clean up the field, or so I could get to class. Screw that. The girl that I really looked up to, the girl that was the best of the best, that I was lucky enough to be witness to how she conducted herself here on campus on the banks. I I did not run up to the locker room. I stopped. I helped the freshmen clean up.
Yeah.
I carried the mats. You're not, like she said, you're not too good to carry the bags or the gear at practice. You could always do the dirty work. You could train harder. You could um, work harder to achieve whatever. And that was the same mindset that carried me into health and medicine and what I, do today.
Yeah.
So um,
Carmen, to expand on that, I mean, that story's awesome and love to meet that woman,
she's incredible. Yeah.
and but the scenario is so it's so true all the time is, and I say this almost on every show it comes up, is you become the average of the 5 or 6 people you hang around, right? Um, and also if you want to be something, whatever that is, well, you find the person who's great at it and just do what they do.
Yeah.
You don't need to like you said, you don't need to reinvent the wheel,
No.
and you don't need to fail and fail the hard way. Find the people that have done it and just do what they, now it doesn't mean you're not going to fail at all,
Yeah.
but do what they do. You'll get there a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. And I love what you said too about, you know, your ego was not large enough or too large to say, hey, I'm not helping these young guys clean up the field. Because there's a lot of seniors that walk around with this animosity because they were kind of hazed when they were freshmen. Like, hey, payback, it's their turn now. But to turn around and say, hey, here's a senior helping the young freshman. You know what that does to your relationship with the freshman? Oh my God, talk about respect. It just goes through the roof.
There were
Uh,
seniors I loved and seniors I hated because of how they treated the other teammates and treated
Yeah,
me. Um, it
yeah,
builds a different culture
yeah,
when you respect each other. And I mean, I'm all for the, traditional breaking the freshman's
yeah, sure.
chops. It's all um it's like a rite of passage, right? But when it comes to the real nitty gritty stuff, like you got to be there for each other. You got to
Yeah.
support each other.
Treat them like human beings, right? And you said the word culture. And we talk about that in the corporate world too. You see all these videos, and what's your culture? Or the words are on the wall. The words are on the wall. They don't mean anything unless you're following the actions that go along with the words,
Act. Yeah.
right?
Yep.
You know, and I've had some conversations with people over my 36 plus years in this corporate world, and I've had the culture here is kind of tough. Well, the culture here is it really, well, the culture stinks. Well, the culture's got to get better. I'm like, well, hey, listen, man, you're part of the culture. You're part of the fabric. What are you doing to make it better? If it sucks,
Yeah.
you suck.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's the way I say. So listen, be careful what you say. If you want the culture to be better, what are you doing to make it better?
yeah,
Don't tell me it sucks. Well, if it sucks, then you suck too.
yeah.
And that's the way you got to look at it. So that's awesome. You know. Um, how about this? Let me ask you this around competition. You know, give me an experience where a time in competition brought out like the best in you. Like, hey man, I thrived. I just rose to this level and it was awesome. And where you sunk to the lowest, like, oh my God, I just got hammered here.
Well, you just said rose to the rose to the um I don't necessarily think you rise. This is a little pet peeve of mine. I don't know if we ever rise to that occasion. It's very romantic. It's very um romantic. Rise to the I think we all fall back to our level of training, right? I think we all fall back to what we prepared ourselves for. So, and I'm going to give you a pretty black and white scenario. I wasn't good. I really wasn't good in college. I was very average, very middle of the pack. Um, but we were playing Nebraska one weekend. They were ranked. It was um, it was a Saturday. We had beaten them on Friday. We had no business beating them on Friday. I struck out a couple times. My family was coming up Saturday, and um, I got into this was pretty typical of me getting to the field early to take some extra practice swings. But I asked the coach to meet me there early. We got some extra practice swings, and I just drilled and I drilled and I drilled for a couple hours before the game on Saturday, and nothing special happened. Um, we were actually presented with a different pitcher than we thought we were going to be facing. So everything I had practiced for those 2 hours, I thought kind of went out the window because my approach needed to change a little bit. Um, and so I didn't, rise to I ended up hitting a couple home runs or sorry, a home run and a couple doubles and had a great game. My parents were there to see it. We ended up winning. Everybody played well, but I think that it was in those, crappy moments where you prepare, maybe because you failed. You prepare even harder with even more attention to detail. And again, there's maybe some adversity. There was no layup. There was no softball thrown to me. There was a different pitcher on the mound. And so I kind of fell back on whatever I did to prepare that game. And it was enough to get me through, not just get me through, but to succeed.
A great game.
Great game. I didn't have many games like that. So that was a big highlight for me. But right, so it came from a failure the day before and an
Yep.
adversity that day in the moment. We weren't expecting to see that pitcher. Yet I don't know if I rose to the occasion, but I fell back on my training
Yeah.
and the work I did that morning, the work I did the day before, the work I did 6 months leading up to that, right? Um, so I think that was did you ask when was the moment in time when you were at your lowest?
Your lowest too.
Yeah, so my sophomore year, um sophomore junior year. Junior year, we had a couple seniors on the team that were pretty big leaders. I was starting as a junior, middle of the lineup guy. Um, and my coaches were expecting a lot from me, a lot from me, more than I thought they were expecting from me. And so they brought us in one day in the middle of practice and kind of ripped a bunch of us with um, a focus on a few of us me being one of those guys. And we were called out for not really like holding certain guys accountable during a certain drill or during certain practice drills. And I wasn't a as much as I love to talk, I wasn't a big vocal guy on the field. I was more of a like lead by example type of guy, lead by action. And so our coach was a big, let's, be a vocal guy. And we had a lot of vocal guys on the team. And so I was really upset about that because I'm like, he wants me to be vocal and be a yeller and be a screamer. And I love yelling and screaming when, I'm cheering for my guys. But when someone does something wrong, or I don't really want to yell at them. And so that practice, I took that so personally, right? Ego
Yeah.
was in play there. And it was such a shame because I took that personally when he really just wanted the best for us, best for me, best for our team. And that practice, one of my teammates, like one of my boys, one of my brothers messed up, and I showed him up in front of the entire team. I yelled at,
Mm.
and it felt like just poison coming out of my mouth. I felt it was like an out of body experience, and I didn't recognize myself. Talk about not recognizing yourself. I'm trying to be a leader. I led. I was in the library at night. They were calling me out during team meetings. Hey, Carmen's GPA is this. Go study with Carmen, or like stupid stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
I was leading in different ways on and off the field, and um, first one out to practice, helping clean up and set up, right, stuff like that. But I just showed up one of my teammates in front of everybody, and I embarrassed him. And I thought that's what the coach meant. That wasn't me. Regardless of what, I still to this day, even though he wanted that out of me, that should have never came out of me. It's not me. I don't know how to be a
Yeah.
yeller, or I felt so bad. And that kind of um mm, impacted the relationship I had with that guy for a while, forever, honestly. And I didn't recognize myself in that moment. This was all at the same time that I was, but from my sophomore to junior year, I got involved with our um, Christian athlete organization on campus, Athletes in Action. And I was in that moment in time searching for something that was, or helping, or trying to figure out what it was that I was good at, meant to be doing, who I was meant to be. And so that was a big, eye-opening moment, awakening moment where I was like, I'm trying to be someone I'm not. I'm trying to do something that's not me. And I showed up one of my teammates. I'm trying to be this vocal leader that is just
Not you.
not me. And I was
Yeah.
trying to find, I was forcing something, trying to force something. When it's not genuine, it's sad. It's ugly. It's not you. And so I it was a struggle for me, definitely a big struggle for me. And I'll never forget that moment. Forget about the amount of errors I made or the amount of times I struck out, but we talked about earlier about bringing people up
Yeah.
around us and supporting others. I couldn't have made that guy feel lower
Lower.
when I showed him up. And that was the worst moment of my
Mm.
college career, was bringing one of my teammates down because I thought I was being a leader and being vocal and holding someone accountable by yelling at them after they missed a ground ball. Like, come on, how stupid does that sound?
Have you ever gone back and talked to that guy since?
Within those couple weeks following that, I tried, and I think he understood that I didn't really mean that. He understood. I apologized. He knew me. That he Everyone knew me. They're like, Carm,
But
what?
did he know that, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but it wasn't you really yelling at him.
We were all there when the coaches ripped us.
Right.
We were all there. They all knew, hey, we just sat through coach ripping us for 20 minutes, and then we broke and Carm just ripped you. Um,
And the only reason he did it is because the coach told him to do it.
I hope that was made clear, and I tried to make it clear, but this is a, I'll share this. Um I got spoken to by the coaches after that practice about that. So much so that it was me and two of our coaches. I was moved to, and I'm an emotional guy. I'm not a big, like, tough guy as much as I like to be a tough guy. I'm really not a
Yeah.
big. Um, I was moved to tears in the dugout. It was the three of us. I was so disappointed in myself. I
Ugh,
felt so horrible. The whole team went up. They were like, "Carm, stay here. Come here." And they were like, what the heck's wrong with you? And I'm like, I thought that's what you guys wanted. Like, this is, I'm holding him accountable. I'm getting on his ass. You were talking about getting on everybody's ass. Like, and I'm a dumb 18-year-old. What do I know about
yeah.
anything, right? So,
Yeah.
um, I was so disappointed in myself. It was such a low moment in my
Moment.
athletic career with my guys, that I will never, ever forget that. And it was so sad. It was something that I'll remember to this day. There's a is it Dale Carnegie's, it might not be Dale. No, I don't think it's, I think it was John Gordon. It was
John Gordon's the man.
John Gordon's the man. I think it was The Carpenter.
Hmm. Great book.
Great book, right? So John Gordon, The Carpenter, a, a man is measured by how he treats little men. So when, the kids that are bullying the nerdy guy, the kids that are bullying the guy that's smarter, the kids that are treating somebody like crap. I really, and I read that book after that happened in college, and that was what I thought of. You're judged by how you treat, those not necessarily under you, but those in your control, or those that are maybe not as fortunate as you. You're
Hmm.
judged. A great man is judged by how he treats
Right.
lesser men.
Yeah.
And so that really stung. That really, really stung, and that was really upsetting. But yeah, I just went off on a tangent there.
But Carmen, let's, I know this is a tough moment for you, but if John Gordon, I've read all his books. You know, he's awesome. He's actually spoken one of our corporate things too, which was great.
Wow,
Yeah, really, really cool stuff.
wow, that's awesome.
And if you read the book The Energy Bus, did you read that book?
I did. I read that first. That was years ago. Yeah.
Right. And that's about his life, about how he was such a negative guy in
Yeah.
life. And then you read that book, at the end of the book, he says it's him, like, holy smokes, right? So if you think that Energy Bus book is almost like what just happened to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that moment in time, as small as it may be as far as time,
Yeah.
is the biggest impact on your life. And it taught you,
I will never, ever, ever do
do it
that again.
again, but it made you become who you are today. And how you look at people, the compassion you have, the willingness to help, the enthusiasm, the energy, the focus, it made that moment in time of short-term misery is turning into long-term success for you.
Yeah.
That's so cool,
It will never happen again. That's,
right?
yeah.
You know, and maybe the guy, you don't have to share his name, but maybe you can send this to him,
That would be something.
you know,
Yeah.
and we can cut it, we can cut this
I don't
little
know if he
piece
hates
out
it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and send it to him. You know, that's man, that's some powerful stuff.
Sucked, but
I can see, for those who aren't or just listening, I can see in your face that it's a moment in time that, you know, I would say let's go backwards in that time and let's be grateful that you had that moment, even though it was at at the expense of somebody else to make you who you are today. And think about the hundreds or thousands of people you'll impact in a positive light because of that moment.
yeah.
You know, and maybe you can bring that guy into the mix someday and say, look, man, because of you, because of this, because of my stupidity, for lack of better words,
Oh my God. Yeah.
me doing this with you has encouraged me to become this. And thank you for being willing to deal with that with me.
Yep.
That's so cool. You know, and that's what this whole show's about, man.
Now it's cool. Back then it was.
Oh yeah, back then it's amazing. You know, mm, That's a tough one, right? So injuries, what kind of injuries did you deal with, in college? Anything major jump out?
I mean, I not necessarily in college, but I was and this is kind of at the core of who I am and my story and my journey, but I was a 14-year-old, seventh grade pitcher or baseball player who decided to help his team out and give him a couple innings on a weekend, on a Sunday in a tournament. And I broke my elbow pitching. This bone right here at the inside of my elbow came off.
My
Um,
God.
call that an avulsion. And um, I met a physical therapist who flipped my world upside down. He was a college baseball player. He played at Maryland, Dr. Pete, and he got me better. He got me back to play. I was never the same. My elbow still to this day is not totally 100%, but he handled me more, or he handled more than just my physical ailments. He knew my how to motivate me, and he knew my goals, and so he helped
And
introduce
that
me.
was in high school, you said?
This was in middle school.
Middle school.
Yeah, and so ever since then, I've had it's what inspired me to go into physical therapy, and so that taught me the importance of taking care of your body. It taught me how to, take care of your ailments prior to practice, what we call prehab, getting in the training room early before practice, which required you to show up an extra half hour before practice, which was a big commitment. And it was a challenge. It was definitely a challenge. Nothing like, I mean, there's athletes out there who tear their ACL or get Tommy John, but it was definitely an eye-opening moment. It was special. It totally kicked off my career, introduced me to the field. And so it was also a little bit of an emotional ride because I mentioned earlier, I was a football athlete. And so I missed my eighth grade football season because of this. And football at the time was my love, was my passion. And I remember sitting in the training room. My grandpa took me to one of the local high schools of one of the trainers he was friends with, and sat there, and she tested my elbow, and my elbow just moved like this, the way it's not supposed to.
Yeah.
Um, and she was like, "Yeah, I think it's broken." And I unloaded tears right there. I'm like, "Am I going to be able to play football this year?" And she looked at me, and she looked at my grandpa, and then she looked at me again, and she looked at my grandpa, and then my grandpa got a little emotional, and he just put his hand on me, and like she didn't say anything, and I was like, "All right, guess I'm not playing football." And I lost it because that
No.
was my love. And I didn't even pitch. I just was trying to help out my team. I gave them an extra inning on a Sunday, and I just tried throwing it as hard as I could, and I heard a pop. But that was the kicker to my career. That was the worst injury I've probably ever experienced, and something that's given me a lot of perspective and inspiration in my.
Does your elbow still bother you now?
Oh
Or
yeah, it's a mess. I didn't really know. Uh, I was like a football guy, right? I kind of lifted like a little bit of. I went on to play college baseball, but I treated my body like a football athlete
Yeah.
for years, and
Yep.
so
Yep.
um, we're supposed to be a little more lanky and loose. And I loved lifting weights, so my elbow just got a little too beat up and tight, and still bothers me to this day. But I'm not playing anymore, so it doesn't matter. But uh,
Yeah. So I know we kind of touched on a lot of this already, but one of the things I want to ask you, maybe this can help the other guys that are out there playing right now or girls, but what were your steps in college while you're in school playing baseball?
yeah.
What steps did you take to prepare you, knowing that college sports as a whole is limited. It's a limited time of your life. What kind of steps did you take to prepare yourself for that one day when, hey, you know what, this game's over?
Oh, oh, okay. Like how did I prepare myself for like life after?
Yeah, life after the game. Game's over. Identity as a baseball player is no longer here.
I mean, the thing is though, we will and I use this a lot with some of my students. We'll always have our jersey on. We'll always, you always wear your
Well,
jersey, right? Being a competitor is who we are. I'm lucky. I was fortunate enough to still feed my competitive edge. Um, I never wanted to take my jersey off, Jeff. I never wanted to have to prepare myself to leave. So that's exactly what I did. I pursued graduate school at Columbia, which had a competitive aura. Um,
doesn't get much harder than that.
so physical therapy is also a pretty competitive field, and everyone there at my program was driven to be the best. So that itch never really left me. Um, However, while I tried to set myself up for never having to leave that athletically competitive environment, which I'm working with athletes to this day. That was kind of how I was like, you know what, I'm going to set myself up. I'm going to work hard enough. I'm going to pursue a career that will never allow me to leave this this era. But one thing I'm learning, Jeff, is that you don't always have to be that competitive, or you don't always have to be the best. Now, that's crazy. Did I ever think I'd be saying something like that? Not really. That mindset definitely helped prepare me for life after sport or life after college. Um, it helped me get to where I am now. But for health reasons, I realized that um, sometimes it's good to kind of leave that aspect behind. Sometimes it's good to not necessarily embrace um, that crazy, driven, ambitious, type A, psychotic to an extent, um, personality, because sometimes you just need to chill out. That's been the toughest adjustment for me. So this is not really answering your question. I feel like I prepared myself so much to not ever have to leave that realm, that I'm finding myself forcing myself to chill out and pump the brakes and
Yeah.
turn the athlete competitive nature of me off, because it has led to some personal issues, some health issues. I need to be transparent. Like, I've started meditating.
Cool.
I have, well, a physician told me, like, hey, Carm, like, before, you've got a lot that we've got to take care of. And right now, if I were you, I'd figure out how to start spending some time with yourself and meditating and breathing and learning how to find peace and calmness and stillness,
It's like reduce the intensity, right?
reduce the intensity, right? Journaling and
Yep.
even speaking to a therapist. So that's helped me manage my competitive nature, and always being what I call like on go.
Yeah.
I want to live a long, happy life and be able to help the athletes that I'm treating right now and
Yep.
patients that I want to be treating and helping for a long time. I need to learn how to turn off, wind down for my own mental health. And like, this is, a challenge for me and something I'll continue to work on. So not really totally answering your question, like, how did I
No,
prepare
you
myself?
are. That is a huge answer,
Yeah. Okay.
and I think that, you know, what you just said is learn how to turn it down, slow it down, chill out,
Yeah.
wind down. We can go on and on, all different
Yeah.
descriptions, but because sometimes the intensity gets so high, the level is so high, and you get so absorbed in it that it affects not just everybody around you, but like you said, it affects your health,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? But you said journaling. It's funny. I'm so glad you brought that up. If you don't mind chatting about that for a second, I started doing it in 2017.
Uh,
I read something somewhere, somebody, somehow, I forget who, because I am also the type A. I'll put in 18, 20 hours in a day and not even look at the clock. And people are like, when are you coming home? What are you doing this? What are you doing? and I have to slow it down sometimes. And somebody said, well, just start writing a journal about what you're grateful for, to write about your kids, write about your successes in life, write about all the good stuff, and write about things you need to do to relax and all that kind of stuff. And I carry it, just so you know, for anybody who's watching, I carry this book with me everywhere.
Good for you. Yeah.
Everywhere I go, and I'm just going to give you a real quick. I'm not going to read anything, but I'm just going to tell you, I'm on page 639.
Good for you. Yeah.
And it's therapy, man. Like you said, it's
Oh yeah.
therapy.
Yeah.
So I mean, when you're in there, like, can you share what things you talk to
Beth, I
yourself
would
about?
love to. And there's two, this is two pronged right here. There's two things I would like to talk about. First, I want to talk about it from honestly where it came from a religious perspective or a faith perspective, and then it came from more of like a mental health perspective more recently. So originally back in I think I mentioned this earlier in the show at this point, what, like an hour ago,
Okay.
uh that became involved with our Christian athlete organization on campus. I was raised a Catholic. I was what I would describe a bad Catholic, right? I didn't go to church every Sunday. I just went through the motions. I didn't really know what was going on um, in the church or what I was supposed to be practicing or believing or understanding or how I was supposed to be living. And I was lucky enough to meet a guy um, or a couple different guys and girls at Rutgers. Tyler Stoll and his wife, and John Maurer and his wife, who ran Athletes in Action at Rutgers, who was assisted by Sean Tucker as well. And I basically came to Christ through months and months of studying the Bible with them and doing group studies and learning how to pray and learning how to, um, be in a community of those who believe and have faith. And so the reason I started journaling was because I didn't know what it was like to pray. I'm very cerebral, right? Like I'm a math science guy, and I was raised Catholic. What does it mean to pray? How does this work? What do you say? What do you ask for? What do you talk to God about? How does this work? And while that might seem very black and white to some people out there, that's just how my brain works. But John encouraged me to start journaling. And so when I initially started journaling, that was my attempt to pray, um,
Mm.
talk to God, and um, thank God and express my gratitude and repent for my sins and to ask for forgiveness and then to eventually pray for others. And that was me figuring out how to pray. And it just led to me growing in my faith and growing in my relationship with God and learning more about myself. And you're writing all these thoughts down on paper. You're having a conversation with the Lord. And so you look back on those, you reflect on those conversations, you learn more about yourself, um, and you grow. And so that was the first point I wanted to talk about when it came
Yep.
to journaling. And so that has stuck with me. Um, I have a journal next to my bed that's a biblical journal. Each page where you journal for that day has a Bible verse at the bottom, which you're kind of supposed to tie into the
Hmm.
journal entry for that night or for that day. Second one was this past um, uh, June. I completed my residency training in Philadelphia. And for those who don't know what residency training is in the medical field or health field, whether you're a physician, which it's standard training in medicine, but in nursing and therapy and in certain other health and allied health fields, residency is where you finish graduate school and you go and you train for an extra year or two with a special or a specific population, and you specialize, you become a specialist with that certain population. So I did a residency with athletes. I was on part of the sports medicine staff at Temple, and residency is um it like breaks a lot of people. It is what shapes a lot of people. It is what, I mean, if you talk to any of your doctors or any of your physicians, and it is long, tiring, mentally exhausting, and it kicks your ass. I
It's
was
designed
working.
to weed people out.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's designed to see if you've got what it
Got
takes,
what it takes.
got what it takes. So I was working 60, 70-hour weeks, and it was a lot. And I like we've talked, like I wanted to be the best. So I'd wake up, I was going on 4 hours of sleep, and I would consume as much caffeine as I needed to, and um uh neglect my body to succeed. And I did, and I did really well, and I was very successful, but I developed some physiologic health issues, along with what I have been told, or now I believe, and I don't, I mean this in a genuine way, some anxiety issues that revolve around my health, and um, very aware of that now, and very acknowledging of that. And so part of um, the help and the um, treatment I've been receiving was the recommendation from one of my physicians to start journaling. And so thankfully, like I just shared, I have some experience journaling, but now it's not necessarily just from a faith perspective, but it's from a mental well-being perspective. Kind of to what you were, kind of to speak to what you were talking about, I will, unload
Yeah.
all of my stresses from the day, all the lists
Yeah.
and the to-dos that I have to get done that day or the next
Yeah.
day. Get it all down on paper, get it out, forget about it before you go to sleep.
Yeah.
And don't worry about it, because you're going to sleep. You'll wake up tomorrow and it'll be right there, what you did today, what you've got to do tomorrow. And I'm a big list guy. And so a big part of my journaling experience has come from the stresses and anxieties and mental struggles that I've endured over the last year, and this has been a solution, a tool that I'm now using to help combat that. And just like the lists that I have sitting at my desk right now, um, this journal also sits by my bed, and I can reflect on it. I could
So you
unload.
have two separate journals.
Got two separate journals.
Cool.
One's more functional, one's more faith-based,
Hmm.
and they both serve a purpose. And that is me sharing with
Yeah.
you how I utilize journaling and why I appreciate that. And I share that with some of my students, some of my
Yes.
athletes, when I was running Bible studies, or leading Bible studies at Rutgers, when athletes were coming to their faith, coming to Christ. That was a tool I would share with them, say, hey, this worked for me. Why don't you try it? When I'm mentoring um, students through um, grad school, which I still do to this day, through residency. I've got a bunch of graduate students under my wing right now that I'm helping guide. Journaling is a tool hey guys, get ahead of this before
Yeah.
you get burnt out, before you get too lost in your work. I'm going to give you
Yeah.
this. You're going to write down everything that you thought about today, and that you're worried about tomorrow, or that you're planning on doing tomorrow, that um so you dump it, and you get back to it tomorrow. So
Yeah.
that is journaling 101 from me.
Yeah. Man, I really appreciate you sharing that, and like you just said, hey, you're talking to these young guys, don't wait,
Yeah.
right? And I can't agree with you more, Carmen. Don't wait till you're over 50 like me to start doing it. Because if I can go back in time and do it, because one of the things it helps me do is sometimes when I'm writing out the stuff that I'm thinking about, it helps me look at it differently.
Is it important or is it not?
Right,
Right? Should you be
right,
stressed about it, or should you not? Is it
exactly.
priority number one, or is it priority number five?
Right. Or was I just being stupid? Was I
Yeah.
just being stupid, looking at something the wrong way, overreacted, said the, I'm like, man, and it just helps you come to a calmer area.
respected.
Right. Exactly. That is so cool. Um, a lot of good stuff here, man. So what advice can you give younger athletes? You know, they're just jacked up and inspired. They want to get out there. They want to be you. They want to play Big Ten college baseball or football or basketball or whatever. You know, what can you tell these young people?
This is a personal, kind of a personal question, Jeff, because I've been fortunate enough to kind of like share this with like students of mine and friends of mine and kids that I've helped along the way. And this is the advice that anyone that I know that I've shared this advice with listens to this. This is going to sound pretty familiar to them. But this is, I mean, well, first off, let's say this, right? Um, Kudos, right? If someone is involved in athlete or athletics and sports and they're seeking to play at a higher level, I commend them for their bravery and discipline to travel a road much less traveled, right? First off, they've likely already, if they're in that position, like you did in high school, and I did in high school before we even got to college athletics, made sacrifices. They've missed parties. They've passed up on hangouts with friends because of their sport. They've probably used their sport as an excuse to get out of things, but also hated when it's the reason they've had to miss out on going to something awesome, right? So they've done a lot already to be where they are if they're considering this, if they want to play in college. But this is where my advice comes in. They're gonna have to make a lot more sacrifices. So whether you play football or golf or soccer or tennis, or you're a member of the dance team, the level of intensity and demand your sport has on you in college is unlike anything you've ever experienced before. It's not just your sport, right? It's your job. That job requires you to work 24/7 because in reality, everything you do, every decision you make affects your sport, and you will always have to be conscious of the decisions you make, right? So that was first. Now, next, you may be called, and people joke about this a lot, the student athlete, right? But we all know, even coming from me, who really embodied student first athlete, you're really an athlete student,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Everyone tells you academics are the most important thing, which they are, but it's hard to find the willpower to stay up till 3 a.m. studying bio when you've got 6 a.m. lift to practice the next, right? I mean, I've done it and others have done it, but at the end of the day, your time and your energy revolves around your sport activities. And the sooner you realize that, so this is the advice I'm giving you, the sooner you guys realize that, the better off you'll be learning how to manage your time. Now, next, sports in college will be one of the hardest things you ever do. People are quick to say that college athletes are spoiled, right? And it's mainly maybe because of the gear and perks that they get.
Yeah.
Here's what I
They're,
say to
they're
those.
entitled. They're entitled for things.
Yes. Here's what I say to those people that say that. Wake up at 5:30 a.m. to run until you throw up. Work out so hard until you're certain you're only a few moments away from
From
like
passing out.
blacking out, right?
Yeah.
Try really, really, really hard at something to only be yelled at again and told that it wasn't good enough, and then work 5 times harder to make sure that it's good enough. Risk your body, risk your health, risk your mental health in order to win that tackle or land that flip and get over that bar, right? Sprint hard enough that your legs feel like jello, but you can't stop. Why? Because you've got people relying on you.
Counting on you. Yep.
Keep going again right now. Now, guess what? Do that all over again. every day, in season, off season, in the freezing cold, in the winter, in the heat of the summer, 100-degree summer days, on weekends, on holidays. Now tell me that you're spoiled for getting a t-shirt that represents your team. Now, this is my spiel to all my athletes, right? I'm not done. So next, expect to be, and I think this probably came across tonight, expect to be misunderstood.
Mm.
It's hard to explain the tears of frustration after a rough practice or a horrible game, while you're moving, slowly that morning in class or in the hallways because you ran a lot of sprints that morning, and maybe you kind of smell because you didn't shower that morning because it was your only off day that week and you decided to sleep in an extra, hour, right? So, um, but also, and that's okay, right? But don't be bitter. Also, don't be bitter towards the people who tell you, oh, yeah, I'm really sore too. I went for a run this morning. As much as you want to ask them if, they had someone screaming at them to go faster and to, um, you know, make them run more, run harder than they were supposed to. You don't need to because they are probably sore. Um,
Yeah.
and they're most likely didn't have a coach yelling at them. But here's the thing, it's okay to be different from those people around you and to feel a little misunderstood because there are a lot of things that you don't understand in their life fully either, right? So you have like I'm speaking to these when I speak to my athletes, right? I want them to know you will have a unique lifestyle, but it's good to be kind to the people who don't know what you suffer through because they have things they don't or they suffer through also that you don't um know about. Right now, another point, and I'm going to keep going until you cut me off.
I'm ready to roll.
I mentioned this earlier, right? You never take your jersey off. Even when you're not competing, Jeff, you're a symbol. We are always a symbol of your school.
Yeah.
Um, and what you do is a direct reflection on your program. And you should take pride. These athletes should take pride in knowing that all that you do, that they do, is being watched and monitored by those around them. And with that pride also comes great responsibility to bring honor to your sport and school. My grandfather told me, Jeff, and my grandfather passed like through 4 years ago now. One of the biggest influences in my life. He said, Carm, you never know who's watching, right? I'm gonna keep going. I want these kids to know, and I tell these kids, remember, guys, and I think this came up earlier, you're not alone. On the nights where you can't seem to stop stressing or crying because you miss your mom, you miss your dog, your bed at home, right? Remember, you have teammates who are in your same situation and understand more than anyone else what
Yeah.
you're going through. They have either gone through it already or are going through something similar to what you are. And it makes going through it that much easier when you let them into your life, when you
Yeah.
embrace them, when you share your problems and share your feelings with them. They are always on your team. And I mean that literally, right?
Forever.
Forever,
Forever.
forever, right? Now, last one here, last point I usually add in the spiel is that um, you all should embrace your forced friends. For a lot of us, we end up going to a school that's, relatively far away from home in order for us to play our sport. We leave behind our parents, um, our
Everything.
hometowns, everything,
Everything.
our best friends, right? And it's not easy to pick up and start a new life in a new city or town with new faces, but lucky, right? Lucky for you guys, lucky for us, we have these forced friends, right? Teammates. Your team is literally your family, not only because they see you at your worst, bent over, looking like you're ready to die after a hard workout or running gassers, right? Uh,
Yeah.
but because you're literally forced to be with them all of the time, like a family, you
Yeah.
didn't get to, you
You
know,
didn't choose them.
you didn't choose them. You did not choose them.
Yep.
Um, and that's also very much different from like sororities or fraternities in college where you have, your
You
friends
choose to go there.
choose to go there, right? As I've grown closer to my teammates, I've made some of the best friends I have ever had, right? Even though you were at a school getting an education to be successful in your sport, the relationships you make with the people in the jerseys beside you are the most rewarding part of your entire college career. So my last piece of advice, embrace your forced friends because like we mentioned, one day your college career will come to an end, but it's the relationships you made along the way that will last last
Forever.
last a lifetime, right?
Yeah. And you know what's cool about that too is they last a lifetime, but they're also in the history books.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
your grandchildren will be able to look you up in the Rutgers athletic world and
Yeah.
see grandpa in the team picture
Yeah.
photos and say, hey, that's my grandfather play. Like you
Yeah.
talked about your dad. My dad's got the records. My dad, like people can look that stuff up, which
Yeah.
which is so cool, and you see the guy sitting right next to you,
Yeah.
you know, which is cool. But here's one thing I always wondered with the traditional students, what the heck do they do with all their time? You know?
Come on.
Like,
Come on. I
what
don't
do they
right.
do?
Well, here's the kicker. I've gotten a lot of arguments with students who, not sorry, arguments or had discussion,
Discussions.
sorry, and had been challenged by maybe even other athletes that are acknowledging of this. But I like to think a lot of these other students maybe work because to be honest, Jeff, what we did in college was a full-time job.
Yeah.
Talk about 40 hours. Yeah, 40
Yeah.
hours of work.
More.
You sure? Yeah, wink, wink. Like I know there's all these restrictions on how long
Yep.
you practice and how long you could play and stuff like that. But I do think, I mean, if I wasn't a student athlete, my parents, I'd be working. I'd have to be working. Um, and I give them credit. I didn't do that in college. I didn't work. So if these students are working and stuff, but if you're
That's
just
different. That's different. I'm
that's
talking
different.
about the ones who don't have jobs. They just go to class. What do you do all day? You know?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. It's a tough one. Like, and they try to debate you. They try to debate you. Well, I don't want to hear it, you know? But
Yeah.
listen, Carmen, this has been awesome. Is there
Yeah.
anything else we haven't talked about? Anything else you think? Any other words of wisdom you think we need to discuss before we wrap it up?
Um, I mean, yeah, recency bias is at play here. I feel like I was just with the Philadelphia Phillies as part of my last um couple months in rotation, and we kind of touched on mental health here a little bit. We kind of talked in depth about, college athletics, and I think there's one little one little um nugget that I would like to share um with you before I think you'll appreciate this before I go. Something that I learned with my time during um during the Phils. Now, they had a motto. I was with the rehab staff, so I worked with their PTs, their athletic trainers, some of their strength coaches, um, with all of the guys that had been surgically operated on or had long-term injuries. They were all down in Florida, and they were going through it, right? Um, they had a motto that they had on the back of all of the shirts that the guys were given to wear. Shirts in their lockers had this motto printed on the back of it. Um, and the motto is this old, uh, apparently Japanese saying, and it's kintsugi, 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 which means technically golden joinery or golden repair. Now, kintsugi is a Japanese art form, actually.
How
Uh,
do you spell that? K what?
KINTSUGI, which means like golden repair. It's a form of like art where, or like art and philosophy, that involves repairing, actually like broken pottery by mending the cracks and the areas of breakage, which with a lacquer that's mixed with powdered gold, silver, or like platinum or something like that. Now, rather than uh, disguising, rather than throwing the whole thing away, or rather than like painting over the flaws, kintsugi, the concept of kintsugi highlights and embraces the flaws, okay? And embraces them, celebrating the beauty in the imperfection and the history and the journey and the path of the object. Now, this philosophy behind kintsugi, um, which it's kind of also related to this Japanese concept of wabi sabi, which that's irrelevant here, but which talks about finding beauty in the imperfection with the passage of time. Now, just to leave you with this, we've talked a lot about my career tonight, being an athlete, what I do with helping others, but this concept, this was so memorable and impactful for me. I haven't forgot about this in the months since leaving the Phillies. My future goals, you know, are honestly to like help athletes become stronger in the places they were once broken, you know? And I think as an athlete, being trained as a physiotherapist at Columbia and with the Reds and the Phillies and some of my other experiences, I feel like I'm well equipped to help them do that both physically and mentally. But I share that with you guys because I want you to maybe resonate or sit with and let that marinate, that concept of being stronger in the places you were once broken, right? People look at their flaws and their failures um in a negative light sometimes, but what if we can make that like an area of our strength? And to tie this personally, and I'm good, this is really personal, and I don't know why I'm sharing this right now, but I've got a little bit of a um I'm getting a heart procedure done next week because of the stresses, the physical stresses I subjected myself to this past year in residency. And I'll be fine. Very minimal risk with the procedure. Um, but I didn't treat myself um, great, even as a healthcare professional who knows better. I didn't treat myself great this past year, and so I'm uh, I've got to deal with it, and I unfortunately have to deal with it with a pretty serious procedure. But um, I've I've subscribed to that philosophy of kintsugi, and now I've made a ton of lifestyle changes because I want to be stronger in the places that I am broken.
Yeah.
Now I want to be stronger, so I've made some lifestyle changes, and we talked about this earlier. Jeffy talked about sleeping, and I mentioned my or not buddy, my a guy I look up to, Joel Jameson, when it comes to cardiovascular health and endurance training and aerobic fitness training, and so I a goal of mine, just to leave you with a goal of mine is to become stronger in the places I was
That is so cool.
broken, I'm fractured, and so that's getting my cardiovascular fitness up to make my ticker a little bit stronger.
Kintsugi, Golden Repair.
Kintsugi, yep.
That is
Golden.
so cool. Well, Carmen, I appreciate the fact that you shared that with us. That's I'm sure it's not the most comfortable thing to talk about.
Stressful, super anxiety inducing, actually.
Uh, we want to reduce that. We want to reduce
Yeah,
that anxiety, right?
yeah.
But listen, man, this has been great. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the fact that you're willing to take, multiple hours out of your day and for anybody who doesn't know, it's 9 o'clock at night. you know, you're still at the office, and willing to give your time to me and to those that are listening, which truly means you care about bringing value to other people's lives, which is what you mentioned before. And that's that moment in time you had with your teammate years ago, as painful as that was, is the reason why you're here tonight. And you got it, like you said, golden repair. If that was a broken part of your life, well, take that and use it and run with it. And I can't imagine what you're going to do. I mean, you're a young guy, 27 years old. You got so much in front of you. The future is so bright and exciting. I just enjoy watching. And I see the stuff you're doing, the things you're posting, the things you're accomplishing, and I mean, I can't imagine how proud your family is of everything you've done and who you've become.
I'm lucky. That's because of my family.
Yeah.
I have to add that it's because of them, and I was raised the right way, and I've got a lot of people around me that love me, which not a lot of people are fortunate enough to have that, but I'm blessed and I'm lucky and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Carmen, great having you. And I wish you all the best, and I look forward to catching up with you on the show again soon.
You're the best, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
You got it.